You're muted, Jim.
You're muted again.
One more time.
You got it, Jim. Don't touch. Don't touch, Jim. You got it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate you joining us, and hope you'll come back often and tell your friends about us so that they can join us for future shows. Before we start tonight, I'd like to introduce Father Ron Walters for the show's prayer. Father Walters.
O God, as we create in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father Ron. We really do appreciate all your help. I want to talk about the scholarship just a little bit. We have 3 scholarships, $2,000 apiece, that we're going to be offering to high school students that are going to continue their education in a STEAM program: science, technology, engineering, art, or math, in either a 2-year, 4-year, or technical school. So we can do 3 students this year. We'll be announcing the 3 winners July the 1st, or July the 29th, I mean. But the last date in order to send in your application is July the 1st. The applications are available on our website, newtraxmodeling.com/scholarship. And you can file them online, or you can send a paper copy in. All of the information that you need to apply is on our website. And really hope that we get a lot of applications from kids all over the country. We think this is a real opportunity to try to help 3 deserving model railroaders with paying for their college educations. And it's all because of people who have watched the show or read the articles or in some way participated in NewTrax, heard about the scholarships, and made a donation to the 501c3 company that we started to accept the donations. We use Zephy. Zephy doesn't cost us anything. So whatever anybody contributes to the scholarship through Zephy, 100% of that money goes to the scholarship fund. And except for the out-of-pocket expenses, no personnel costs, but the out-of-pocket expenses, for example, paying the FedEx charges to ship our banners around to the various trade shows and events that you may see them at, every penny of that money goes to the scholarships for the kids. So we hope the kids hear about it, hope that you'll mention it to any deserving high school student or college student, because if they're model railroaders, we'd like to have them apply. We'd like to try to help them with their educational cost. So with that said, I want to turn to Chris Course for him to be able to talk about the next My Build that's coming up April the 24th. Chris?
Thanks, Jim. Sorry, I missed it last week, everyone. I was stuck in another Zoom meeting that thought it was going to be a short one, but it ended up not being, which, long story short, was a good thing. But anyway, the next My Build is in April. The April challenge will be spring. Show us your spring scenery, your flora, vegetation, trees, something wild, flower boxes, vines, backdrops, the planting of crops, the world awakening after winter, those sorts of things. The show will be April 17th, and to participate, please email your photos to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com. And if you could, please try to get them to me by April 14th. That would be greatly appreciated. And Also, if you have not participated in the past, please include a photo of yourself so we can set you up with a title card. And if for whatever reason you're unable to be with us, please include a description of what you've got, your scale, etc., all of that that you were showing us. So anyway, like I said, the April challenge will be spring. Please get those photos to me by April 14th for the April 17th show. And I will turn it back over to you, Jim.
Very good. Thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate all your help getting this program off the ground. Now I want to turn this over to Phil Edholm so that Phil can talk to us about the upcoming Pacific Coast Regions Convention that starts the April 24th through the 28th of this year. Phil, welcome. Can't hear you.
You're muted, Phil.
Yeah, I know. We had a little dog incident here with one of the dogs getting excited about the other dog. So it caused a moment of not being able to respond. So hi, this is Phil Edholm. I want to talk very, very briefly about the TechLine virtual convention we're doing. So as Jim said, we're doing a convention April 24th to 28th. So that's just basically a month away, just a few weeks away. We'll be in Silicon Valley. If you're interested in coming to California, great room rates, $130 room rate, which based on what I've heard of rooms recently is actually a pretty good price point. But what I think is really exciting is we're going to really try to take the convention experience and extend it virtually. And so what we've done is we're taking one clinic track. We'll have 3 clinic tracks of the convention. One clinic track will be in the virtual convention. The clinics are scheduled and all that's up on the website, including all the clinics. They were selected by the people that were in the virtual, who were registered for the virtual convention about a week and a half ago. They got to basically rank which clinics they wanted to see. One of the nice things about doing things virtually is you can kind of do that kind of thing. Those will be essentially in the morning and the afternoon, California Pacific time. So you can see the times up there. The clinics will all be recorded and available later. So if you don't want to stay up late for a clinic, you'll be able to see it. Then in the afternoons, California time. So this is starting at about 12:30, actually about 1 o'clock, 12:30 to 1 o'clock, and then running to about 5:30. So that would be on the East Coast, 3 to 8. What we'll have is a whole bunch of different activities. There will be a tour of the contest room by some MMRs. There will be some other tours. There will be a virtual presentation of the 2 prototype tours that are being done. Niles Canyon, which is very interesting. They have 22 pieces of motive power now, including the only Kraus Maffei, that's a double engine diesel hydraulic German engine. Amazing and very interesting story about that. We've done is NewTrax has sponsored a virtual trade show, and it's something Jim is really excited about trying to do is as virtual events happen, trying to partner with them to bring in some new vendors that people don't necessarily see unless they go to some of the big East Coast train shows. So trying to meet some new vendors. Then we'll have birds of a feather sessions in the afternoon where you can meet with the vendors. So each of the vendors will have a little video, and then there'll be an opportunity to meet with them. There'll be then some different organizations. So the way it'll work is we'll have this one Zoom room where everybody will come in. It's kind of a gathering room. Then that'll be where the clinics will be run. Between the clinics, it'll be a gathering place for people to talk. But what we'll have is we'll have a series of breakout rooms. So this makes it begin to feel kind of like a real convention, because what you can do is you can start talking and hear about a topic and then move off to a clinic room or off to a breakout and just talk about that topic some more. There'll also be scheduled times for the operations SIG, the LD SIG, O-scale Central, and the S-scale National Association of S-Gaugers. So they'll be talking about those scales and some of the opportunities there. We also have done this thing called the Clinic Goes On, where what happens is the clinician's asked to go and get on Zoom, and if you want to, you can go to a breakout and talk to them. And then we'll have the vendors there. So, an opportunity, some of the vendors you've seen on NewTrax to actually meet with them. So what we're really trying to do is replicate as much of a physical convention as you can to people attending virtually. So if you kind of look down the the list here of things, we're taking one clinic room. We're trying to take the prototype tours so you at least see what they were all about. Trying to show the contest room. We're doing this virtual train show, which quite frankly, in many ways is probably better than the vendors that you get at a smaller convention. Layout tours are available primarily as layout videos you can see on the website. If you go to the website, they're all linked there. And then all the way down, to meeting old friends for folks who have been at some of the virtual events in the past. So I think it's a great opportunity. And what we really tried to do is make this real cost effective. So if you use this code, when you go register, if you use the code PCR24, you can register, and instead of paying $30, it's only $20, which, it's kind of interesting to think about. You get 3 days of being able to go do things, interact with people. We're pushing, I think, 60 or 65 signups now. And so, I think the thing that's interesting, if enough people get there, it begins to feel like a real convention. Which is kind of what the 2021 National felt like. I don't think we've really achieved that. Most events feel a lot like this Zoom meeting, which is, a series of people talking, but there's not a lot of interaction, and none of you are really able to interact except in the chat outside of the primary discussion. One of the nice things about the way the convention is structured is you can meet somebody from the other side of the world that has your similar modeling interest and actually have a conversation with them, and something that can continue beyond that. Something that's virtually impossible in many other ways. So I did put something together about reasons, but I won't go into that any further. But you can also check out the convention here. It's a great convention, and if we can see you in Silicon Valley, we'd love to see you there. So thanks, Jim. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of participate in a convention without having to leave home and participate in the parts you want. And I think it's a very cost-effective way to do it.
Well, I agree with you, Phil, and I really do appreciate you allowing NewTrax to be a part of it, because I really think that it could be a part of the future that a lot of organizations may decide that they'd like to experiment with too, because it is going to open it up to a lot of people who frankly may never get to go to California and never experience the wonderful weather that you have out there. Now, how you're going to prove that to us virtually, I'll leave that up to you, sir. But I think you're going to have a great convention, and thanks so very much, Phil.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, one thing, you do have some prizes too, right?
Yeah, so we've actually been very effective. And I have to pay a big shout out to the vendor community. We reached out to a very large swath of vendors and have had a large number of donations of door prizes for the convention. We've also had some donations from the vendors that are part of the virtual train show. And what we'll be doing is taking some of those virtual prizes where it's a gift certificate, something that can be sent by email, and those will be in there for the virtual convention. So there's some pretty exciting, and I think you'll see some discounts. Some of the vendors will offer discounts as well. So I think that's an exciting thing for the convention. You can come and spend $20, learn some things, see some interesting things, meet some new people, and maybe even win a prize. So.
Gotcha. Phil, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I just got an email from Scott Gill, and let me just share a little bit of it with you here. Scott says, I'm ramping up my email announcement for the April 27th, 28th Timonium show. He's going to be sending it out to over 4,000 of the attendees that normally would come to his Timonium show. And what he's interested in doing is telling them in that email some of the special opportunities or special discounts or special products or special awards or special gifts or special whatever that they may experience by attending his convention this year. I think it's much on the line that Phil was talking about his gifts and door prizes that are going to be offered in the PCR convention. So if I knew what NewTrax could offer the attendees, I would certainly offer something for that. But everything we do is free, except for our scholarship, and we ask you to pay money to contribute to the scholarship. But everything else is free. So I really don't know what we can offer the attendees. But I would encourage everybody to consider Scott's request and certainly participate in his Timonium show on the 27th and 28th of April. Well, with that said, now I'd like to turn to opening our show tonight. And our first presenter is Steve Bettinger, who is the host of G-Scale Modeling, which is sponsored by Alan Rogers Company, New Creations, Victorian Model Railroad Buildings, LLC. Alan.
Welcome to New Creations Victorian Railroad Buildings, located in Bakersfield, California, 1 hour from the famed Tehachapi Loop. As part of building his model railroad layout, Alan Rogers took photos and made scale drawings of a number of buildings in the Southwest, many of which no longer exist. New Creations Victorian Railroad Buildings has turned these photos and drawings into kits with laser-cut wood, 3D printed components and detailed instructions. We produce kits in HO, O, S, N and G scales. Our O scale kits are compatible with Holiday Village dioramas. You can see our products at train shows or use the QR code to visit our website. We hope you will try our unique kits. They are easy and fun to build, even for beginners. You will enjoy the finished models for many years to come.
And now let me introduce both Steve Sherrill and Steve Bettinger to talk about G-Scale Modeling. Are you guys not here?
I saw Steve earlier and then he went off. So maybe
Okay. Maybe they're having trouble with their.
He's off.
Here I am.
There we go.
All right.
We turn my volume. I'm getting my volume up a little bit. All right.
Don't talk loud.
Okay, tonight's program is going to be about making G-scale items not commercially available.
Good evening. So we're going to do two projects this evening, and both are from, I guess you would say, everyday items that you can purchase at your local hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, etc., and turn into literally items that you really need for your railroad, but there's no commercial manufacturer for those items that I'm aware of anyway. So we're going to start off with what I obviously have right here, which is a typical 2-bay coal hopper that many folks in G-Scale will certainly have these. This is an empty car, so you got to get it loaded somehow, correct? Coal, gravel, ore, whatever it is you're going to load has to get inside the car, and typically through a tipple or some type of other chute or loading device. So I'm going to shove that car out of the way, and voila, here's what we're going to build tonight. This is what we would normally see loading a typical car. This is looking at it mounted underneath the structure, track coming in underneath to load these cars. In order to make this item, it only requires 7 parts, 7 pretty simple parts. And I'll show you what you need to purchase when you go out. First of all, you're going to buy one of these. You've all probably seen this. This is the top cap for a PVC deck post. Goes around the railing on your property. Next thing you're going to purchase is this. This is the picket, one of the pickets in your deck post that you normally have like that. That's the 2 items that you need to go out and get. We're going to start with this first one. In order to get started off, I've gone ahead and marked the top of this where you're going to have to make a cut. I actually don't cut mine. What I do is I just take this, hold it upside down on my belt sander, and just press down lightly until I have removed enough of that I'm down flat. You do not want to remove all of that because you're going to mount a second piece onto the top of that. So you need something to glue to in order to do that. Next item up is this little scrap, 1/4 inch thick PVC. That will get applied right here on top of this. And that's the centering for the chute. And if we look at the finished one, we see that right here as the base. Going back to the picket that you purchased, out of this you can get many, many pieces of the chute, the device here in the middle. Let me get my handy dandy felt tip marker here and show you something. Whatever type of saw you have, hand saw, table saw, you name it, in order to get the very first cut, this is what we want. We want just this amount, which is the top radius and flat on one side. So you put it in your saw, and you're going to make that cut right there. Same thing on the opposite side. You're going to come back here, and you're going to cut that piece off where you have about a 3-inch section, keeping this piece. That's the piece we want. Once we've done that, we're going to go back to our little block that we had right here, and we're going to put a bevel on this underside. Typically anywhere from 30 to 45 degrees. That's going to work because we want that to be fastened in this position right on top of there when we're done. Next piece we're going to need is what we see here in yellow, second portion of our chute. Likewise, now we go back to our PVC post. We move up to a different area on there. This time our cut is going to be twice as deep. We're going to cut this full 1/2 inch depth that we see right there. Now we move in about like that right there. Same thing. Whack it off at that point. After you have that piece, we're going to come back. We're going to take a little saw. I use a little razor saw. Cut down through right here. Take this piece here out, cut this direction, throw that piece away. We save this. We cut a little 45 tit on the sides of here. And this piece, along with our first piece that we cut, so I'm going to put that together correctly, goes just like this, right? Glue it to our little base piece we had right down here. And our last item we're going to need is this very expensive part here called a nail. Just a little number 4 common nail. Ground the tip off of that. That will become the hinge. And the hinge, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but that's right here at the back end. So when everything's put together, you're going to have the angled piece. You're going to keep the nail in there, stay, followed by the nail and the chute on top, everything glued together. Next thing, how do I mount this onto my structure? All right, once I get that together. Now we go back to my handy dandy product I'm always talking about, which is PL 375 glue. And another piece of the 1/4 inch PVC. This is just a scrap piece that I cut out. This is going to go here inside in that position. It's a good fit. We take that back out. This piece we mount on the bottom of our structure like that. Glue it, whatever you need to do, put it up there, let that sit there. When that's done, you're going to take your finished item. This is up like that, right? We're going to push the assembly up to it. And then we're going to take our glue, our PL 375, and we're just going to fill up this gap all the way around here with lots of that. Get out with the finger, push it in tight. The adhesion, just the suction and adhesion alone will hold that up for you. There's nothing else you need to do to that. If you feel you need additional things to hold it, you could drill 2 holes. The only other thing you have to do in that assembly, and that is add support wires. I'll go back to the first piece I showed you, and I have 2 little black dots right on there. And if we look on the finished product, we see 2 supports coming down. Those 2 little supports I have right here. This is a typical piece of brass wire. My very precise measurement here, you see, I just stick it in the depth of the pliers, crank it over like that. There that piece is. That's all you need. Once you've drilled a hole, this gets inserted through a hole you've made in this side. You've drilled this out down below, and you allow that to stub through, and you glue it on the other side. Just don't let it stick out too far. If you do, it's going to run into your block. So you're 1/4 of an inch inside, that's plenty, and you're all set. For that particular one, you can paint it black, solid black if you like. I like the 2-tone effect. I'm just using regular scale coat black. You can use any black you get a hold of. And the yellow in this case is a Tamiya product for that. Some of the newer era loaders have these yellow ends on them because when you're loading cars, when that extends downward, the material builds up, and that yellow for the train crew, whoever, that gives them an indicator that they're not down too low when they move those cars forward. They can see that yellow projected down much better than an all dark chute. I'll entertain any questions anybody has on that item.
Steve, are there smaller size posts that you can maybe use and make these in smaller scales?
Okay, if you're an O scale, right? Go to the plumbing department in the store, back where they sell inexpensive towel rods. And they will have this same cross section back there at about 5/8 of an inch square. All you're looking for is the part that the towel hangs from. There'll be an end bracket on each end. You can buy this sets that are somewhere in the neighborhood of $9. You just want that square stock, and you can just repeat the same process using that same stock. These, by the way, come in 2 sizes as well. These come in 1 3/8 and 1 3/4. So you can purchase whatever size you want in those. And the whole project, when you're done, these are the caps, $3. A picket post like that, about another $3. The miscellaneous stuff, if you have this in your workshop, no, factor in $2 to that, and you got about an $8 finished project when you're done. Okay, next item. This is for along your right of way. And what I have here, I started with just a real inexpensive Bachmann utility pole that I trimmed the arms down a little shorter on. Bachmann put these out in some of their train sets. Also, Bachmann sells these in packages, 12 to a pack, inexpensive to buy. Spray paint them, let them weather up. But what we're interested in is making this transformer. Not every pole has a transformer. When you get near your industry, structures and so forth, you're going to need a step-down transformer to supply voltage to that property. So the items we're going to go out and get for this, we're going to go, this is Walmart for this one. I'm sorry, Home Depot. Walmart sells them too. These are the little feet that go on the bottom of your furniture to help them slide around better so they don't get stuck in your carpet or scratch up your hardwood floors. They have multiple sizes in the pack. We're interested in the small ones. Thank goodness they give you about 10 in that pack. When you get them inside, they have a little sticky tape you peel off and a piece of foam. We have to get rid of that. So you're going to take your knife, you're going to dig that little piece of foam out of there, and it's going to look just like this on the inside. It's going to be a hollow cap. and no longer have that white piece we see there. Once we have this, our other purchase is this right here. These are just scraps I had from a construction job. These are two different weights of pipe, schedule 20 and schedule 30. Either one will work. If you're going out to buy it, this is the 30. You don't need to buy that. Just buy the cheaper one, which is the schedule 20. You're going to cut off a piece of it, just like this, about 1.5 inches in length. And then we're going to take the cap. We're going to put it on there just like that. And that's the top of our transformer. On the bottom, we have to close it off as well. Anything you can shove up in there will work. You can actually put a dowel on in some of them. I just take an old scrap piece of styrene. You can see my circle that I've drawn on there. Set it on there, glue her together. After it's glued up, just trim around the excess. And when you get all done, if we look under the bottom of this one, we get a solid bottom. Next step is out of the top of the transformer, what looks like 2 posts sticking up. For that, we have got ourselves 2 sheet metal screws. These happen to be 1.25 inch screws. And all you need to do with those is take and cut off the heads and about 1/2 inch of it. We're only interested in this much of it right there, that section. The rest of this, we don't care about anymore. Cut those off. We're going to drill 2 holes in the top, about 1/8 inch here and here. And we'll then screw them in. They'll screw counterclockwise down in there. The threads will work just fine. Just turn the opposite direction of what you normally do and screw them right in there. After that, on the side, we see 2 of the outfeed wires. Some transformers have 3, depending on the step down. For that, we need a scrap piece of this stuff. And this is 14 gauge house wire, Romex. I've stripped off the outside coating, so I have just this. And I'm going to take and cut off just the leading part here. Now I have that part and this. I'm going to drill 2 holes again here in the side. And once I have those drilled, I'm going to push it in until I have the larger portion of it exposed. That actually is quite flexible. I can take pliers, I can bend these just like that. I can bend those, set them up into position so that the overhead, if I actually put overhead wires out here, and on my interior of my G-scale in the house, I have everything wired, and these are in appropriate positions. Likewise, I have a connector wire from the top of the transformer to the grounding position. So now, only thing remaining is how to get this onto the pole, because this top lip, as you can see, is bigger than the transformer. For that, little piece of evergreen plastic, this is like 1/8 inch thick. I have cut that just as big as the transformer itself. I stand it up here, and I've glued that to the pole. Once I glue this on, that gives me a nice broad surface here, and I glue the transformer to this. You'll have a hard time, even if you cut a divot in the top, getting around and around to fasten to each other. Much simpler if you have some square stock in there to let that bite tip. So now you have yourself a fairly inexpensive transformer. And since a pack of these right here at about $13 for the whole pack, you'll get at least 10 of them out of there. The other little miscellaneous parts you have right here, probably $2.50 to make your transformers. There we go. All you G-scalers, you got projects.
Thank you so much, Steve. That's great looking modeling. No question about it. And the price you can't beat.
Can't hear him.
Can you not hear me?
We can't hear you.
Well, I don't know what to do. I'm not
okay. We hear you now.
Okay.
Now we hear you.
Well, thank you so very much, both of you. We really do appreciate it, and some great looking modeling, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, next I want to go to Tom Farrell, who, as we all know, is scratch building his layout. So, Tom, welcome.
Thank you again for having me. I enjoy being on your show, and this evening I'm going to have part 3 of my new Turtle Creek project. Just a moment here. There we go. So this evening I'm going to be all over the place again. I mean, that's what happens when you scratch build a layout. The first thing I'm going to go over is the timber retaining wall, the completion of that. So last week I had brought this timber retaining wall up to this point. It's right next to a timber tunnel. And I finished that and installed it. My grant line bolts came in, and as I explained before, I cut the bolts off, sand this flat, and glue this to a piece of styrene, which I cut in length with into strips with an X-Acto knife and a ruler, and then with my chopper I cut them to a specific length so they all more or less match. But anyway, it's a nice effect, and it came out really nice. So next is a little scenery work and a little ballasting. So this is the area where my tipple from last week sits. And when I got to looking at this, I thought how nice it would be if off to the right here, I had another, behind it and off to the right, I had another tipple. So I, for the sake of the show, I just mocked something up. But the idea is that to put some scenery underneath this and build another tipple where the trains actually pass underneath, or the ore cars. So I cut some extruded pink foam, and using yellow wood glue that I carefully put on there, that was sarcasm, I glued it in place. I cut it with a just a conventional hand saw. I cut this out, and then I put some more glue on there, and I put a second piece virtually identical to this on it. And the third piece is this open cell foam, and I don't really, styrofoam, and I don't particularly like this stuff, but I had some, and I like the height that I was working with. I didn't want 3 stacks of the pink foam, the closed cell foam. It would be too high. So anyway, I used this and I put it in place. This really isn't on a slope. This is just poor photography. And you'll see how this develops. So then with scrap pieces of foam in between the track and the ledge that I'm creating here, I just stuff this with foam. And then with wood screw, or not wood screws, drywall screws, just to hold this styrofoam in place, this open cell styrofoam, the closed cell styrofoam, I just hand put them in there because they were lifting till the glue dries. And then sometimes I'll use the plaster impregnated cloth. This time I didn't. I just mixed some Sculpt-A-Mold up and just put it on here with the putty knife. And it pretty much dries overnight. It was pretty thick in areas, so it actually took 2 or 3 days to dry. And right there is basically the extension. Here is where I'll have that other tipple and a track. So then I thought I'd jump to ballasting. Now there's probably 20 different ways to ballast. This is how I ballast. I just take Elmer's glue in between the outside of these ties. I do both sides of the ties. Then with my ballast, I sprinkle the ballast right down the middle of the track dry. And then I sprinkle the ballast on the outside of the where I had my Elmer's glue. And then I go back with scenic cement. I like this stuff. You can mix your own with diluted. Elmer's glue or matte medium. It probably is just matte medium, but I just like the consistency and the convenience of this. So I always have a couple balls of Phoenix with an and I just soak the middle of the in between the rails, and it runs out into where the Elmer's glue was. It just makes for a very permanent ballasting. And there's the finished ballasting there. I go back with a dental pick and pick off all the erroneous pieces of ballast that wind up on the railroad ties. I went back and hand painted all these ties with a brush of railroad brown. And then I went back and I rusted the rails, and I always paint the tops this reddish rust. Just what I do. It's a nice effect. I mean, that's magnified grossly. And this ballast, by the way, is gray, and the rest of my railroad is buff. Just for variation, I thought I'd put this spur in with a gray, basically a granite, where the buff is a limestone. If I ever get to the other side of my layout in the freight yard, I'm going to consider doing it in this gray ballast. I just think it looks kind of neat. So then I went ahead and I started coloring the evenings, or the Sculptamold that I put in there, the extension. And for this photograph, I put in the tipple. Now, I've never actually colored my Sculptamold with Hunter Line weathering mix, but I thought, what the heck, let me try this. So I took this shale color that I had, and I basically painted it on this raw white Sculptamold. And then when it was dry, it was this battleship gray. I mean, it was gray. And I wanted to add some tone to it. So I took another Hunter Line light gray, and I painted it on in places so that it wasn't just a consistent gray. That's going to be my base. I will return to that scene and scenic it with Woodland Scenics ground covers and additional highlights with acrylic paint and whatnot. But for now, those are my base colors, and I'm just moving on. There's where that new tipple will go. That's just the mock-up. Depending on the spirit moves me, I may work on that for next time. We'll see. So I moved a little further into Turtle Creek, a little eastbound. And there's the Turtle Creek Depot, a scratch-built depot, and there's my scratch-built water tank. This is unweathered too, by the way. I'll have to go back and weather this. But I'm going to install these this evening. I'll show you how I did that. First thing is I wanted a concrete foundation, basically. So I took some wood and I just made them all the same length. And then I hand sanded, knocked the corners down so they weren't perfectly parallel and perpendicular. I wanted them a little round. Then with Elmer's glue, I put them down on my foam and I moved them around so they were exactly where I wanted them, with the water tower sitting on there. Yeah, I wanted them dead center to each other. When I was satisfied that everything was in place, I let it dry overnight. And I painted them with a concrete paint, and then with just pure Elmer's glue, I painted Elmer's glue all the way around them. And then I put in ballast cinders. And I find I have to do this a couple times because you always miss something. And then the installation of the Turtle Creek Depot. All my scratch builds, virtually all of them, are built on a plywood base. The advantage of that is that I can, if I ever do move like I did 2 years ago, structures come out instantly. You know, my last layout was 15 years, 16 years in the making, and one afternoon to take all these structures out. So the first thing I do is I mark the perimeter with magic marker. That establishes the perimeter. Then with a razor saw, I cut approximately 1/4 inch parallel and perpendicular, X and Y, if you will, to a depth of that plywood. And then with the putty knife, I simply just pop them out, pop these little squares out. They turn into little bricks, if you will. It's a very fast process. Makes a nice mess. That's a wonderful mess. So I cleared that all out. This is what you're left. Still isn't adequate to put that plywood in place. So with a surf foam planer, it's just a rasp, basically. I just worked it back and forth. I got things smooth. After a couple, I placed the depot in and out, take out the high spots till I got a nice flush fit. So there's the overall look where it's going in the layout. This is the main line. This is the mining spur for the tipple. This will be a collapsed tunnel in a hobo camp. There is the depot fitting flush, more or less, to the foam, and then this water tank's just there for the effect. And then there is the depot in place. This water tank's still just sitting there. I have to finish over in here, but that's generally the ground cover. I use a combination. I always start off with fine black cinders, then medium black cinders, then several shades of grass, and then some other additional ground covers. The mistake a lot of people make is they'll just use one color or two colors. In nature, you know, we have all these different colors, and that adds to the realism. And there's a couple buildings here in the back. You know, I've been toying with which buildings and where they're going to go. We'll see how this develops, but these are two good candidates for the background there. Then my tipple will be here, and you know, I envision having a wooden fence here and rails, and this, you know, it'll be super detailed like everything I do. These are all the base colors, the base ground cover. This is not fully weathered. You know, it's a process. And that's the joy of the hobby. So that's what I have for you this evening. Are there any questions or any comments?
Yeah, Tom.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead.
I have one question. What type of rail were you using?
Rail, this is Pico.
And I noticed all the ties had chips and chunks out of them, like they were real old ties.
Because it's ON30 Pico.
So that's the way they make them, eh?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Thanks.
right.
Thank you.
Which is pretty difficult to find these days, I guess. But and then I don't know what's going on with the pricing, but it's pretty expensive too. But
Yeah.
anyway, it is what it is.
Great looking modeling, Tom. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me again. See you next
Yes,
week.
sir. Well, now I want to introduce Sherri Johnson, who owns CatzPaw, which has been in business for many years. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But Sherri is coming out with a brand new product that, frankly, I'm excited about because I think it's going to really do something special for our model railroads. It's called InvisaTrax, and Sherri's going to demonstrate it for us this evening. Sherri, welcome.
Great, thank you all. Glad you're here. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared. And this is going to be a two-part process. The first part, I'm actually going to focus on getting the InvisaTrax product installed, which I got that done. And this photo is not my final landscaping. I didn't get it done. That will be done for next week. But what we've got is I have a customer who wanted a desktop display done. And basically we're going to have moonshine Mike sitting up on top of the hill. And we're going to have these two little revenuer guys wandering around down below looking for said still. So we're going to use the InvisaTrax system to make those guys move. And the process, I'm going to skip this slide because I realized I talked through most of it anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide what it is I want to move. And as I said, we're going to be moving our two revenuers. Haven't named them yet, but I've got two of them here. First one's got an axe, so he is ready to chop up the still, and the second one's got a shotgun, so he can take care of any problems. And since I want to move both of these figures at the same time, I'm using a clear sheet of polycarbonate. I love this stuff. It's great. It's 0.01 inch thick. And I'm going to place my figures on it, kind of figure out how I want them side by side or behind each other or kind of off to the side. And once I've made my decision on where I want them, I'm going to sketch around, as you see very poorly, with a Sharpie so I can kind of cut out the plastic for just their base. And I'm just using some museum tack to hold them in place at the moment while I make the cuts. Next up, here we have two chain links that are part of the InvisaTrax system. And what I've done is I have kept two chain links out that I keep magnets in. That way, when I go to do other scenes or figures, I know that I'm going to be able to get my polarities correct. And in the instructions for the InvisaTrax, there's a whole detail about dealing with the magnets. I'm not going to go into that here. But what I've done is I have taken my figures, still with just the museum tack, sat them on top of the chain link, and marked, here in this third picture, I've marked where the magnets are underneath. Now, the system works by having a magnet in the chain and then corresponding magnets on the base. And these magnets on the base, as you can see, are very teeny tiny. They're actually 2 millimeters by 0.5 millimeter thick. We give you a lot of them in the set because you lose a lot of them. I'm still finding them stuck actually on one of my lamps on my workbench. So with my magnets or my plastic marked, I'm going to put a couple of drops of super glue. I'm going to get that little magnet on the tip of my finger, and I'm going to get it close to the base where the magnet is, where I have it marked and where the super glue is. And when I get just close enough, the magnetic attraction is going to pull that magnet over and plop it onto the base. By doing this, I know that my magnet's in the right spot, and I know it's got the right polarity. I repeat that for the second magnet because we got two of them here. If I didn't do two magnets, we'd have a guy spinning around in a circle. So we got two so that they go forward. I let the magnet strike. I let the super glue dry. If not, the magnets stay behind and the base moves forward. Now that my revenuers are out of the way, it comes to the planning part of the layout. Now, this project is actually being built in a rectangular serving tray. I'm going to actually build the layout on the bottom and mount the electronics on the top. So to play around with different designs, I use string. I love the string concept. It lets me take it, lay it out. My first thinking was I was going to have one mountaintop in the middle and then have the revenuers going around that. And then I decided, well, maybe I want the whole mountaintop in the corner. So I kind of came out with this little, actually it looks like a stocking shape over here on the right-hand side. So I've kind of decided that's the layout that I want to go with. I grab my InvisaTrax pieces. I grab some turns. We've got 180-degree turns. We've got some 90-degree turns. And we've got some different length track sections. We got 14 units, an 8-unit, and 4-unit, and 2-unit. And in the instructions, we actually have what those links are, how many inches they are. So you can kind of measure what's going on. But I want to kind of just lay in and kind of what I call blocking in what I'm doing here. So I take my pieces and I block it in on top of the string. And I kind of decided that, yeah, I really like the idea of having the mountain in the corner. I take my pieces off, I take my string, and I mark it so that I know how long my track run's going to be. And my track run's going to be approximately 48 inches. This is going to come in handy later when I need to figure out how many chain links I need to use. Now, in my design, I had rounded edges. We weren't going to do it blocked in. So I'm going to test fit everything in place by using double-sided tape. This is great. It's strong enough to hold the track pieces in place, but will still let you pull them up and move them around if you need to. So I've taken my parts here, and I've got a 180-degree piece that I'm going to use where I'm going to put my motor. And then I have a 90-degree turn, because it's a sharp turn going around the mountain there, where I'm going to put in a bearing turn. And now I've got 3 organic turns. One of the great things about our system is the track is flexible enough to bend to get these organic turns. Now, if you bend it a lot back and forth, as with any plastic, it'll break. But if you're just trying to bend it and get it in there, you can see that this works pretty cool. I trace around the track so that when I remove it, I know where to put it back. I've marked up here in the upper left-hand corner the part where the motor is going to be with that little circle with the little sprigs around it, because my motor is going to be mounted through the wooden base. And basically I use a 3/4 inch Forstner bit. You could use anything else to drill a hole. It just needs to be 3/4 of an inch, because that is the size of the motor. The motors we use for the system are very small. They're N20 motors. They take up very little space, but have a lot of torque for their size. So I drill my hole. I've mounted my motor to my motor turn. I'm going to feed my wire through the hole. Again, using double-sided tape, I'm going to mount that drive motor section to my wood piece. And here I'm showing the motor hanging out underneath. And the motor is actually short enough that it fits in the top of that box. It's only like 3/4 of an inch deep. Now, in this particular project, it's going to be self-contained. So I'm going to mount the electronics, the control system, and the battery holder all to the underside, which is now actually the top, to this rectangular tray. We actually include the battery holder and the control system in the motors in our system. You get everything you need in our basic package to put this layout together. To mount the control circuit, it has a potentiometer on it. Just needs a 1/4 inch hole drilled. So I did that, mounted that in there. Cut out a section so I could have my switch, because we can reverse the directions of the track or the way it's going. Those 2 pieces in, I use a little bit heavier double-sided thick foam to actually mount the battery box, because I want it more permanent than the other really thin, cheap double-sided tape. I lay out my wires underneath and take a look at the top. It's like, okay, we've got everything put together. It's looking good. I attach the drive gear, and we've color coded the system so that the drive gears are blue, so you know which one to go in your turn. One of the things you'll find and that we recommend is you test frequently. So I want to test to make sure my electronics are working, and I hit it. And my drive gear is working, which is awesome. That means my electronics and my wiring is good, my batteries are good, and my drive gear is not binding on anything in that corner. And this is still all just temporarily mounted. I'm going back now that I have my drive gear in place, and you can see it with the blue gear. I'm putting the track back together, putting that bearing turn in, putting more organic turns in, sticking it back down at this point with double-sided tape. And you can kind of ignore that little extra motor hole there. I was actually going to do something else with this and drill the hole in case I wanted to, but I changed my mind, so you can ignore that hole. As we noted with our string length, we said that we had about 48 inches. And each of our little individual chain links are approximately 3/4 of an inch. So doing the math, I came out that I needed a roughly 61 chain links. Notice right there, the 2 shiny ones in the middle. I've got my magnets. I got 2 chain links with the magnets inserted right there in the middle. And I snap all my chain pieces together. And you can see up here in the upper left-hand corner, I've got a little bit of space, but if I pull real tight, I can snap the chain together. You can see it gets hooked. I drop it down into the track, press it in there, take a look. It's looking good. And we're getting ready for test number 1. Okay, I got the chain in there. I got the motor going. I'm going to have a little help from my assistant, Olive, here. She's going to let me know if this is working or not. And we hit the power switch and nothing's happening. Now we know that the motor works because we tested the electronics already. So that means something is wrong with the drive system itself. In this case, my chain was too tight. The motor wasn't strong enough to move the chain. So we come in and we have a couple of different options here. I can add another chain link, which I did, but when you take a look, when I have done that, my chain starts bunching over here, which means by adding that whole length, my chain is now too loose. We have another piece that we offer, which is like a 2-unit section, 2-unit chain piece. I call it a connector piece. We include a couple of those just for this instance, for when adding a whole link is too much, but you need something in there. So I put this piece in, and you can see that it's looking better there on the right. There's a little bunching, but not like there was before. Being the optimistic person that I am, I decided to go ahead and test and see how it worked. And we can see without any load on top that it works pretty good. I always test going both directions because sometimes it'll work one way and it won't work the opposite direction. But this moved pretty good. Next, I'm going to test with an actual load, because just because the chain moves without anything on top, that's great. But once you add the magnets and the extra friction and drive force of the object you're moving, it creates, it's going to need a little more torque, a little more power. Now, I didn't have my revenuers done in time, so these are just 2 figures that I had from a previous project. I have covered the entire box with another piece of that wonderful polycarbonate sheet. Like I said, I love this stuff. Tacked it down in the corners with some tape to hold it in place, because if you don't, when you turn this on, it'll move along with the people. So we're going to test again. And it's like, okay, we're looking good here. People are moving. There she goes, okay. And we can see that coming up on the what I call the pull side of the drive motor, everything is operating nice and smooth. Coming down the back side, which I call the push side of our system, we can see that things are kind of slowing down. It gets caught a little bit and then it picks back up. That means I probably have some bunching going on again, caused by the extra friction. Now, when we get halfway around, we're back on the pull side and things are moving smoothly again. So I did a little close-up. Sure enough, you can see, and it's kind of blurry through the polycarbonate, but you can see that with the figures on it, it changes how the chain moves in the track, and I still have some bunching here. I've got like 3-4 places where it's bunching up on the push me side. So we're going to make another change, and I decided in this case to move the drive motor from the top corner down to where the first turn was. That way it kind of puts it in the middle of the push me pull me's. I also decided that on the very sharpest or the sharpest of the organic turns to go ahead and put in another 90-degree bearing turn. The bearing turns reduce the friction because it's going through a gear and it moves much smoother than having the actual chain rub against the side of the track. So with this new design in place, we're going to test it again. Looks like it's working good, working much better than test number 2. So we're going to try it with the load on top. And coming into the pull me side, we're still looking good. Coming off the pull me side, we're better than we were, but not perfect. Now, I thought about leaving it this way because if I did, that way my little revenuers would kind of slow down and it might look like they got a hint of where moonshine might be. But I decided I wanted a smooth operation because later I might go back with a microcontroller and actually program my revenuers to slow down in specific spots. So we're going to do another little redesign. And this time I'm going to add a second motor. This way I'll have pretty much an even amount of pull me and push me's. Okay, we're going to test this. And I'm just going to go ahead and, come on, there we go. And why it did that is beyond me. Let me see if I can go back. Okay, let me go back. Is that, there we go. Okay. So with the two motors in there, you can see we have a very smooth operation with just the chain itself. I put my polycarbonate back on top. Try it again with my load. And we can see that we've got nice smooth movement coming into the first motor turn and its sharp turn. The area where we were having problems, which was right here, is now nice and smooth, no jerky motion there. When we get to this turn, we're back on a pull me side, so that second motor is smoothly pulling that load across there. And this would be the next area we would need to watch for potential issues. But since we have our first motor, this whole side is back on a pull me side. So we have nice, smooth movement. Notice no jerkiness. Everything is going very, very smoothly. Once we have our design set and it's tested, we go ahead and we permanently mount the track. Now, in this case, if you notice in the tracks here, there are a bunch of little holes. These holes will accommodate wire nails. They will accommodate 1.mm or 1.6 M wood screws, which is what I used in this case to mount the track to the base. When I do my layouts and I'm doing it in the pink foam, I usually just use the nails. If I'm putting it into a routed channel, I use the nails versus the screws. It's just easier. Okay, going to do a close inspection here to see how again, looking for any bunching, which of course you can see I've added. I was, again, being optimistic. I already added some of my brass screws. You can see I added them at key points where the motor turns are mounted. I added them where there's organic turns or anywhere that the track might shift from having the chain rub against it. I put in the screws. I leave some of the spots open because later on, when we get to the landscaping part, which will be next week, I'm going to show you how I can actually mount some of my ground covering into those screws as well. But you can see here, the chain is operating really, really smooth. And I'm going to be quiet for a moment. And that's the total volume of the system. So as you can see, it's not making a lot of noise at all. And this is without any deadening. This is on a hollow wood box. So the system is very, very quiet. Now, I love testing at multiple speeds. We saw it works good slow. No, actually, these flipped, okay. I actually have my revenuers here, so I'm testing my revenuers, and this time I'm testing going the opposite direction. I mentioned before, I always do tests going both ways. So here we have the revenues going the other way, because when you go the opposite direction, your push me pull me's will be the opposite direction. So you need to test both ways. And my revenuers are looking good. No bunching coming around this side, because back again to the pull me's. And I love this one up here because this would be the flash. This also lets you know that the chain is in there. It's good. If it runs slow, It's great if it runs fast, you know, you've got no binding, no glitches, because in the fast speed, if there's any spot it was going to catch, it'll catch on the fast and it'll lock the system up. That's it for tonight. Like I said, next week we're going to take a look at doing the actual landscaping, putting the ground cover on, the permanent ground cover and stuff like that. The materials that we used was the box, the polycarbonate sheet, which I ordered that stuff. I order it and it's like $6.48 for a piece that's 24 inches by 48 inches. I love that stuff. I use it for a whole bunch, and you'll actually in our set get a piece of that that's 3 by 5 inches to use to mount figures to. Double-sided tape, super glue, of course. CatzPaw. We used the expanded set. Everything to do this particular scene is included in the expanded set. And our revenuers, which are up on the CatzPaw site for sale. And the parts, the total parts that we used here, we used 2 90-degree motor turns. We used a 90-degree bearing turn and a 180-degree bearing turn. Associated gears. 2 of the really long track pieces, 1 of the second to longest and 2 of the second to shortest track pieces. I have here that I used 88 chain links, but I don't think that's right. I think I miscounted. We have the cube magnets that are mounted in the chain, the disc magnets that are mounted on the base that the revenuers are on, the DC motor controller, which you saw mounted, and the battery holder. The only thing we don't include is the batteries. Tools, I used my drill, Forstner bits, sandpaper, pretty much tools that anybody would have on hand. And that brings me to the end of that. So now we get to go for questions.
Anybody have any questions for Sherri?
I have one question, Sherri.
Yes.
A dry lubricant would help that chain go around better, or something you could spray on, or?
I've actually tried the dry lubricant, and with the materials that I'm currently using, it doesn't really help, because I'm using a nylon gear with a PLA drive system. When I was using different materials, the dry lubricant would help, but this doesn't. When that first test, I just had it too tight against those organic curves. It just wasn't doing. But I have used, and if you sometimes you might want to try. And I've used the stuff that you get for like the Pinewood Derby cars, the white powdery graphite.
Mm-hmm.
I've used that, but I didn't really notice any difference.
Thank you, Jerry.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
So Sherri, I don't have to be an electrical engineer or something like that to be able to use this system, right? This is pretty simple.
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, it's so simple that my 76-year-old sister, who has to write down instructions on how to use the remote for her TV, can do this. She's been my guinea pig. She with the instructions, we've got very detailed instructions. She reviewed those, and we have how to hook up the motors is very simple. There's no soldering required. It's just you need a flathead screwdriver, and you can hook up the motors. It's like I said, it's very simple. The track pieces press together, the chains snap together. It's very easy to assemble. Once again, like I said, my 76-year-old sister who has arthritis could get it together without any problems. Matter of fact, I have to do a Christmas thing for her this year with Santa on a snowmobile for her Christmas table display. She's anxiously awaiting that. So,
well, thank you so much for the demonstration tonight. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, and it's partially landscaped, and let me tell you, with the grass on it, it looks really cool when you don't see the workings underneath.
Thanks so very much.
Thank you.
Well, now I want to turn to Seth Johnson for his Crystal River products, Build Along. And I really do appreciate you doing this, Seth. Thank you so much.
I don't know that we're seeing Seth.
Seth is not here. Okay, well, then moving right along, let me go to Martin Breckbiel, MMR, for Martin's Scratch Build Corner. Martin, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Get myself into gear here, or something like it. There you go. Okay. More than a little bleary-eyed, I'm working on 2 different sets of galley proofs for 2 different publications at the same time. And it's been a long day, and I'm not anywhere near done with either. Well, I may be done with both publications, but I'm not done with the galley proofs. A fine distinction there. So, where did I stop? 2 weeks ago, I assembled the building and teased you with the interior that I'm not going to do, but it could be done. We're going to move on from here. I'm actually going to finish this probably tonight, if I don't get totally confused in the process of advancing my own slides. So, I must be getting to the end tonight. It says so on the slide. Okay, so we put a roof in over the kitchen addition, just some 1/32 sheet basswood. Trim that in there to fit. It's a little more complicated than that, though, because I actually set these all up to be removable. And underneath of it, there's a bunch of 3/16" square balsa blocks, and these are fitting up against the back wall block of balsa, and the 2 sides, it snaps into place. You have to actually sort of, there's some realistic friction involved in snapping that into place, but once in, it stays. But it is removable with care. Okay, so let's put the other roofs on. Roofs, whichever. First floor roof, I decided, well, there's no reason to go in there anyhow, so we're not going to make that removable. That's glued into place. Then I had to chop a few holes through it, let these little bits pop up through. I'll come back to them later. But just a sheet of 1/32 basswood. This roof is removable, the second floor roof. And this is a little tricky because you have to assemble it as 2 pieces and have them line up and attach to each other smoothly and lock into place into that second floor wall structure. So it stays where you put it, as opposed to falling off or sliding around. So I actually built one half of it and then attached the other half. And underneath of it, hey, guess what? There's more of that 3/16" balsa. So with a little bit of care, drawing some lines, you know where to put the balsa on the inside, 1/16 of an inch inside of the wall, glue it into place, get it centered where you want it, glue these 2 pieces together, these 2 pieces of balsa on. That'll keep it from going back and forth. This keeps it from falling off the side. Repeat process, connect the 2 together, run a hunk of scrap wood down the middle with a bunch of carpenter's glue, put it back into place, hold it in place with some steel weights, and come back tomorrow, and you have a removable roof. That L there tells me that's the left side, so I know which side is which. Because no matter how good you are, how careful you are, they're not going to be exactly the same left and right. They're going to be slightly different. So you have to know which one's which and take it on and off the same way every time. You don't want to fight the battle trying to be perfect. You get close enough, be good enough, stop there. You try for perfect, it's a sure route to the rubber room and the asylum. So put it all back together. Look at some things here. We've had it on the front entry roof. This is a piece of scribe siding turned upside down. The scribing's underneath, so it could be seen if you really wanted to see it. Okay, somebody standing on the front porch looking up would see it. Some little ornamental pieces here made out of some real, I forgot what size dowel that is, but there's 3 pieces there. It's glued together, then it's beveled, glued into place. The front got that, the back didn't. The front's the money side of the house. We're too cheap to do the back. A lot of grant line doors and windows. Okay, paint them all, loads of fun. Glaze them all, no fun involved in that whatsoever. I find that to be the most tedious part of building structures that I can think of doing. I put it off to as long as possible, then I sit down and do it all in one fell swoop, because if I stop, I may never come back. I've forgotten what size polycarbonate's behind it, probably 10 or 15 thousandths. I may have used Mylar or for the overhead projector film. But you measure it and cut it with a scalpel. Measure it by the millimeter, cut it with a scalpel, drop it into place. It's in there with a little bit of goo around the fringe, around the edge. It is possible to use goo without making a complete and total heaping, slimy brown pile of goo. You can, if you're very gentle with the tube, get very, very little to come out of the tube. Very discrete amounts. And I added a little bonus here, the Berkshire Valley fancy door latch. Grant line doors don't come with that latch. That's a white metal casting that's painted brass with my dwindling supply of flow quill brass. Okay, we'll splash some paint on it. I don't know what that color is. That is a blue and a green from Polyscale. It's, you know, when I do buildings, I get to a certain point and then I recruit my better half and say, what color do you think this should be? And we then go through my entire stock of Polyscale bottles of paint, 50, 60, 70 bottles, and we go through them 18 or 19 times and then pick out 2. And these are the 2. And you say, thank you, dear, and you keep moving because I trust your eyes better than mine. You never want to see some of the horrific color schemes I've actually come up with on some of my buildings that she came down and said, what were you thinking? So better to just avoid that up front. So the back looks like that. And you can see, okay, so instead of the 3 posts on the corner, it just gets the single post. And they actually pop up through the roof. That's what those little things are on the others. You saw them earlier. And this roof fits in here pretty smoothly. And just a side view. First coat of paint or 2. You got 3 or 4. And so we'll get closer to the end of the business. We got the doors and the windows installed. I put those in. Usually they snap into place pretty tightly. You never want them to be really tight because then they'll warp, they'll break. Your glazing will pop loose. You'll break the window if you force it. So this is where you get out a brand new number 11 blade in your knife, and you have to open it up just another 0.5 millimeter. Just do it. It won't hurt. A little bit of goo holds them in place. We have a 3D printed chimney. I've forgotten who that came from. But they were on eBay and they were 3 or 4 for under $10. And I thought, what am I waiting for? I can't build a chimney for that much money. So I bought a pack or 2 of those. That's just a couple of colors of red and some black and some browns, Polyscale on it. It's put in place on the wood roof with a little bit of goo and CA. Then we have some copper flashing around it, step flashed around it. It's 0.5 thousandths or 5 thousandths, sorry, 5 thousandths copper foil. I still have some that I picked up at an estate auction from a model railroader almost 20 years ago, and I'm still using the same roll. I'm still using the tubing I got from him too. Harry Roberts, I don't know, Jim may remember the name.
Yeah.
I bought a box of goodies that I'm still using 20 years later. So we have leftover patterned shingles on the upper roof, which I think may have come from rail scale a long time ago. The standing seam, it's Detail Associates on the first floor roof. More of the patterned shingles, different vendor though on the front porch with some more copper flashing. First floor roof doesn't get copper flashing. We're too cheap. That's just tar paper and more tar paper and some more tar. You know, upstairs is where you live. You have to have a better roof. It looks better that way. Again, those corner ornaments pop through the roof because they were there before the roof was added. And we'll go around backside. You can see a little bit better. Kitchen roof is corrugated because it's the kitchen. You know, we get cheaper as we go around the back, go to the lesser interesting roof. And you can see there's a smoke jacket that's made out of some copper tubing and some 5 or 10 thousandths brass wrapped around the one end. It's all soldered together, painted black with a brass washer soldered to it and stuck into the wall. Pretty straightforward. I've shown how to do that a couple of times. It's very easy to do. There's the back door, and you can see more of that smoke jack, etc. right there. And of course, a 2-stone foundation with some steps. And we get to the last slide. Yes, this is the JV Books house, and we're done. Until I do something that's really silly, like mount it to a piece of plywood and start doing scenery work on it, and planting shrubbery and all that fun stuff, and adding fences but that's for another day and another show and probably another year, maybe another lifetime. But we're done here tonight, so I'm ready for any questions you may or may not have.
Good looking structure, Martin.
Well, that was a quick and easy one.
And it doesn't have wheels on
It doesn't have wheels on it. No, it doesn't.
it.
Next week, I'll start building something that has wheels under it.
Martin,
Well,
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You started the interior and then you said you weren't going to finish it, but you left the roof removable. Are you going back someday?
Yeah, someday, you know, someday, you know, it's that day that comes after maybe tomorrow, but maybe not. I don't know. You know, I sometimes, interiors need to be better planned out than I did this one. How's that for a better answer? You know, sometimes you get too far ahead of yourself, and when you decide to do an interior, it becomes less and less possible, or I could do it, but it wouldn't make sense. And I like it to make sense.
Yeah, once you start doing that, then you need to have stairs going up to it and a bathroom and
Oh, I had the space set aside for a bathroom, and I had an area designated for the stairwell, and that's why the windows on the one side and the first floor are spaced as where they are.
Huh?
But
well, you needed some Victorian wallpaper and you're ready to go.
yeah, and some rugs and some art on the walls, and you know, the right toilet flashing, you know, flushing with the tank up on the wall high and all that fun stuff.
I have 3 words for you.
Yes, sir.
Acrylic flat black.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. But I also would add a partition or two in the first floor again, just to keep light from, you know.
Yeah.
So you can't see through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always find that irksome when I'm visiting a layout and I look at a structure and I can see right through the windows out in one end and out the other end, and I can see the scenery on the other side. Like, no, you know, there's not too many houses that are designed with that in purposely so you can see all the way through, you know, unless it's shotgun.
No, it's better when you see from the first floor windows or second floor windows back down to the first floor windows.
That's even better.
Yeah,
I have a fix for that too. Spray the outside with tall coat.
Yeah. Or the other option there, Tom, is to add curtains and dull coat from the inside before you put the castings in place.
There you go.
And I've done that a couple of times.
Yeah,
Sheet of black construction paper, put in the big building at a 45-degree angle.
Yes, that's the other option.
That'd be
Construction
fancy
paper,
for
of
me.
well, almost any color will work except white because it's dark on the inside. You can get away with a lot of things that way.
Thanks so much, Martin. We'll see you next week.
Yep, we'll have fun doing something. I'm not sure which set of cars will be on the docket.
Gotcha. Look forward to it. So is Seth with us yet?
Don't think so.
I guess not. So sorry, we're just going to have to try to reschedule him at some future date because evidently something's come up and he's won't be able to join us this evening. So let me turn to Steve Sherrill, which really has something I think is really important for us this evening in his what do you want to talk about segment, and something that is sad at the same time. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, tonight we're going to talk about protecting our models from theft. I don't know if John Garrity, an Australian modeler, has had a very serious theft of some displays, models that he took to a train show. I don't know where he was supposed to be on here. He was on earlier. Maybe he'll come on before I finish. I have tried to ask a lot of modelers if they have any special markings on their models that could identify them. And I have yet to have one tell me, yes, I have some sort of marking that would help to recover something that's stolen. I went to NMRA, I could find nothing that they give advice on. I've kind of talked to a couple of shop owners, hobby shop owners, to see if shoplifting is a big problem for models. Now, I know at the train shows, I'm hearing that some of these train shows, some of this in-scale stuff, which is easier to stick in your pocket, and some other tools and things like that, small tools, are starting to disappear. I know when I take my models to a show, I really watch them pretty much, and I don't get out of the sight of them. And at night when I leave, I take the models with me. I do not leave anything at the show site, even though they may have people staying there watching the stuff overnight. My concern is during the event. Some of these events, we have so many people that they're 3 and 4 deep. Somebody can reach in there, grab one of your models, and next thing you know, you're looking for it the next day. And with even our expensive figures, such as the ones that Ian do, they're worth over $50. And so one of those figures can disappear real easy. So, you know, when you have an open house, you need to have somebody to help you. Just like at the train shows. I know when Greg and I are at the show, we're by ourselves, you know. Maybe I'll relieve him or he'll relieve me. But sometimes we can't get in touch with each other because he may be far away from me. So you kind of rely on the people next to you to watch your stuff. But this is becoming a problem, I fear. And I didn't know if anybody else had any situations come up where they had missed some items or they had heard about any of this going on. I know if John gets on here, he has documented all his models with pictures, which is a great idea. Take pictures of your models so you can refer to them, either for insurance purposes or to identify them if they happen to be recovered. Photos. Take lots of photos of your models. You know, sometimes these models, they do get get damaged with people handling them, and you need photos to recover if they happen to be insured. Now, I have heard that some of the expensive half-inch models, which are worth $8,000 or $10,000, there will be some markings under the models and inside the models, just in case, you know, they happen to disappear.
Steve?
Yes.
On expensive locomotives or things of relative high value, there's a device called an Apple AirTag. Where you can hide it on a locomotive, for example, or say one of my scratch builds that I hold dearly, and then it emits a Bluetooth signal that jumps from user to user, so you could follow it all the way across the country. But they're about 4 for $75, roughly, $20 a piece, and for like a brass locomotive or something of value, you can hide one in there, and if somebody takes it, I mean, you can follow them all the way to the parking lot. Your phone, it's a Apple location tracking feature, so you can just look at your phone and say, "Oh, here's the car that it's in. Wait by the car if necessary." You know,
yeah.
Bat in hand.
Now, Tom, is this something that you would? Let's say you bought the 4 for $75. Yeah. Is this something like you would have a posting saying that your models are protected by this service?
Well, you could say that, or you could say protected by Apple AirTags, you know,
yeah.
but then they would look for it. So I would probably go on the premise that it's better to have it secret, and just in the off chance, I don't think it's that rampant, but in the off chance somebody steals something, I mean, before they leave the parking lot, you'd know who it is.
Or yeah, you get a notification when it gets a certain distance away from you too.
Yeah, it'll go all the way across the country. You know.
What was that called again, Tom? What was that called again?
It's called an Apple, from Apple Products. Apple AirTag.
Apple AirTag.
They're like little buttons on your shirt.
It's basically a battery and a little computer, and it talks to all the Apple phones around and says, "I'm here," and that communicates on a network. And if you own it, it tells you where it is. It's great to put them in you put one in your bag when you go on a plane trip and watch where your bag goes.
Okay. I haven't heard anything about that, though. That was, wow, I didn't realize that.
My wife has one on her phone because she never sets her phone down in the same spot. So she can, you know, she can go to our computer and find where her phone is, for example.
Well, see, my wife would need one of those. She never puts the phone down.
We're both going to be sleeping in the doghouse. I see that. But check it out. They're you can get them on, you know, online at Amazon, for example. As long as you have an Apple phone, they probably have the equivalent for the Android and the other stuff, but definitely Apple has it. Yeah.
So, Tom, do you do any other kind of marking on any of your buildings or anything like that?
No, I don't. No.
I mean, and see, I was thinking, yes, this is for protective purposes, but also if you wanted to pass your model construction on to somebody else, that there would be a record that they could always say, "Hey, that was Tom Farrell. He built this in X year," you know?
Yeah.
Because when you get to be real famous, you know, that that's some value.
I'm working on it. No, when I go to these shows, and if I'm doing a build along, like you and I have been to Al Judy's show, for example.
Yeah.
I do these scratch build workshops. At the end of the show, I don't leave my models out in the room. I take them back out. I repack them up, take them back out to my truck, and look it up. You know, I just don't want to take any chances. I doubt anything would happen, but you know, nothing's definitely going to happen if they're not there. You know.
Well, I mean, at these shows, I mean, there's so much temptation. I mean, you could take windows. You know, you could just do a lot of stuff that really don't take up any space. You know, you could.
you have to go on the premise that 99.99% of model railroaders are honest. And, but those that aren't, and you have something really valuable, investigate the air tags. That's one solution.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's better than anything because you can, like Phil says, follow them all the way to California from Harrisburg if you wanted to, you know.
Wow. But if it's virtual,
it just jumps it just jumps from phone to phone to phone to phone. Yeah.
God. Well, I hadn't seen that. You don't have one of those you could show us, do you?
I don't use them. My wife uses them, but I go get one, I guess. She has them on a couple things, like her keys. Keys are great, you know, she always forgets where she puts her keys, you know, but they're just like, you go online, they're just a little button. They look like a button on your shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids gave me something.
So Tom, all you'd have to do is just put it on the inside of, say, a brass locomotive somewhere.
Put it in the tender, turn it on, and off you go, you know.
So you don't have batteries, there's no wiring or anything, you just put it in there.
Yeah, just stick it on. I mean, the battery doesn't last forever, but it lasts a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Wow.
I've never heard of them either.
No. You don't see John on here now, do you?
Was that you, Phil? Had that up? Yeah.
You know, Steve, the real danger is modular groups that go to shows or manufacturers such as Conowingo Models, Railscale, companies like that that have a lot of kits out on a table. You know, some of the vendors that go to Timonium, there'll be a husband and wife, or there'll be a couple people that are working the table, and they can always keep an eye on. But I know some manufacturers that they're the only one there. And when they have to run to the bathroom or go get something to eat, they ask someone else to watch their table. But as you say, someone else can be busy because they're serving their own customers. And I have heard of manufacturers, when they're finished with the show, their inventory and receipts don't necessarily match up. It's rare, but I've heard of it happening. And something like that, you know, if you're a manufacturer and you have 50 kits that are in boxes out on your table, there's no way you could, you know, monitor those with air tags or anything like that. You just have to keep an eye on it.
What you could do, Greg, is, like, I have a home security system called Blink.
Mm-hmm.
For like $20, you can get an internet camera. It's portable. I could take it to Harrisburg, set up 2 cameras on my bench top, and then or put them up high and stick them on the wall or whatever, and just record the whole 2 days of the show. And you know, you could, you know, for less than $100, you could have your air tags and your internet cameras, and you'd have your own security system there. I mean, you know,
you could. It's a shame that you have to think about something like that at the shows, but yeah.
I mean, it's, if you want to go, I mean, it's short change now to use technology if you really want to do it. You know, the Blink cameras, the internet cameras are very inexpensive, and these tags, between the two, you know, that and the right to carry, I think you're in business. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have this problem in West Virginia.
or in Indiana.
Oh my God.
Steve, it's Gary here.
Yeah, Gary.
My buddy and I, we've been to a lot of train shows where we're selling. And I would say over the 30 years of selling railroad stuff, I've had maybe 1 or 2 thefts.
Yeah.
And they were very minor. Now, you all know that I do a lot of Jordan kits. Well, each one of my Jordan kits have a personal thing that I do to each one. It's the same. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if one of my kits were to be taken and I spotted the gentleman and walked over, I could identify that kit.
Okay, well, that's kind of where I was heading, is, you know, was trying to see if anybody is marking their rolling stock or anything like that. You know, if you have an open house, boy, you know, on my railroad, there's no way I can see the entire railroad. It just goes into too many different areas. So, you know, I wouldn't know if you got 80 cars, how would you know if one is missing? You probably wouldn't. Or one engine after you got 45. I mean, you know.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know a engine or a car was missing until you go to look for it, and that could be months and months later.
Yes, that's absolutely true. You know, I mean,
so I think we need to be very careful to partition this discussion into different topics. There's one topic which is around theft, retail theft at train shows. And I mean, I think that's an issue just like retail theft everywhere. It's a, you know, fundamental question. And I don't know, we want to try to get a lot of detail into that. The second is, and I think this may have been where John Garrity's issue was, you know, when we set up modulars at a train show, there's a lot of equipment and stuff that gets left on those modular layouts. And I think that was maybe what happened to him, was he's had stuff lost like that, because that's another issue. And I know there was a modular group back east that had some vandalism. Somebody broke in and basically smashed up everything. And so I think that's a, you know, a second area kind of concern. And then, you know, the third area is somebody going to just steal something off of a modular layout or from a an open house. And I think the thing about the open house is it's fundamentally different. Is most times when you do an open house, it's not publicly announced. It's limited to model railroaders. Right. So I think that's a, you know, that makes that a much safer. So if you look at this in terms of safety, I mean, when you leave your equipment at a train show, there's an expectation they're going to have a security guard. You know, when you're a retail person, you have, regardless of what you're selling, you have to have the assumption that there are some percentage of the population that will decide on a 5-figure discount if they can. So, you know, and I think you know, then on the other side, you look at it and say, you know, are people who come to your open house that are from a convention, or, you know, it's open as part of a, you know, a local divisional meetup, or your club, do you decide to invite people over from your club? The odds there, I think, of somebody, you know, stealing something off your layout are pretty low. So now when you put them open to the public, the general public, then that becomes more of a concern. I mean, I remember the layout that was in Sacramento, actually outside of Sacramento at a fairgrounds, and I asked them when they were open, and I said these times. I said, "Oh, you're not open Friday nights." They said, "You can't be open Friday nights. When they get drunk, they grab." And so, and their layout was basically, you know, it was at 42 inches, and there was no barrier for the public, and so people would start grabbing stuff. So, you know, that's as much of a problem as, in some ways, as theft sometimes. Anyway, I think it's really interesting. You got to kind of think about it, because I think the risks are very different for those things. If you're in retail and you're a retail shop at a train show, you have all the general issues with retail, how you set your shop up, how visible stuff is, whether you can see stuff. All those things are just general retail concerns, I think, today. And quite frankly, when I was, I don't know, I was probably 15, 16 years old and went to work at JCPenney, it was a concern at JCPenney because there was a back door and people would you'd see products that people moved over close to the back door so they can grab them and run out the back door. And
Yeah.
that wasn't a few years ago between us. That was a lot of years ago. So this has always been a problem for retail. It's just the magnitude, I think, has changed a bit.
Let me ask you all a question. What about the insurance? This, for example, the NMRA has policies and so forth that you can buy. How do they play into this?
Well, you can add it on to your house. Most home insurance policies have, when you do your house, it has an automatic coverage of something like $1,000 or something like this. You know, I know when I had my trimmers and all that kind of stuff stolen was $3,000, and they just paid for it. You know, sold out of my building in the back, and I didn't even know for a week or so because I didn't go back there. But you know, but you can get those policies, those special policies.
Yeah, they're riders. I got to do that. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, I got to do that.
Your trains might come beneath arts. As an art collection. And so, like somebody mentioned, write it all down, the descriptions and that, and take photographs and keep them in a safety deposit box or someplace, in case you had a fire and the house burnt down. You still have the
I had a friend, one of the guys in our division, his house burned to the ground. He lost his railroad, but it had been in model railroader, and he had a lot of photos that he was able to document what he had, and he got his own adjuster to go through it and talk about everything, and he got a goodly chunk back for what it is. He'll tell you it doesn't recommend that as a way to get a new layout, but it's you know, but he did because he was able to document what he had. That worked. Now, you know, if somebody steals $130 locomotive off your layout, you know, you've probably got a $500 deductible on your homeowner's insurance, so you're not gonna get anything for that. I think it does happen. Doesn't happen very often, and you do have to be a little vigilant if you got people in that you don't know.
Now, the NMRA does have 3 different plans: the inventory plan, blanket plan, and a layout plan that they offer. I have not investigated them, but I kind of looked at them about a year ago and thought about it.
Yeah,
it's not cheap, but it's, you know, it's if you've got a lot of expensive stuff, it's probably worth it.
I see John Garrity's joined us. John, you there?
He's muted.
He's muted?
Unmuting.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, John. Share with us what has happened to you.
Okay. We were moving our layout from Sydney to Melbourne. It's a distance of about 800 miles to a 2-day show. Halfway, we pulled up in a town on the Victorian border called Albury. I live in the state of New South Wales. The show was actually in the state further south is adjacent is Victoria. The show is actually based in a Melbourne suburb called Sandown. It's famous for its car racing circuit as well as its horse racing circuit. It's a dual purpose kind of racetrack. You can have GGs or fast cars. Okay, so on the way down, I stayed in one motel. My partner, who's hauling the trailer, stayed in a different hotel in one of the Albury suburbs. What we didn't realise was the suburb he was staying in was basically theft central for the Albury region. Overnight, someone broke into the back of his ute, which is, I think, a pickup, aka he's got a 1.5 cab pickup truck, which he uses to move the trailer. The tarps on the trailer were undisturbed, but they managed to defeat the locking mechanism and get into the tonneau cover without slashing the thing. Now, I think we're up against a Tarzan rather than someone who doesn't have much in the arm strength department. They broke in, grabbed 3 hard cases, but in those 3 hard cases, they're only small. They're only kind of yay by about yay thick, was all our narrow gauge rolling stock. So we've lost something like probably 8 different locomotives and over 60 odd variations of stuff that goes behind those locomotives that ran at the mine. It looked very, very much like a smash and grab. The rest of and there was other stuff in the ute that got left behind. The rest of it looked undisturbed. We're betting that this guy had just started to toss the car over when he got disturbed. Someone's walked out or done something, turned on, hit a burglar alarm on their car, done something, and it spooked the guy. We're assuming it's a guy. It may well have been a female. We don't know who got this stuff. Now, one of 2 things has happened. This guy probably thought he was getting some type of camera gear or tools or something like that that could be easily fenced. What he actually got was a collection of narrow gauge railway equipment that was very, very unique. So one of 2 things has happened. This guy suddenly dawned on him, oh shit, I can't fence this stuff. Sorry, I'll rephrase the language. So I'll bin it. If he's binned it, it hasn't surfaced. So my feeling is it may well be landfill in the Albury tip by now. Or he's had a contact which has been able to fence it to, let's say, a very, very private collector who will bury this collection in the bottom drawer, will drag it out periodically, and if you've seen the Lord of the Rings movies, like Gollum, he will kind of drag it out, look at it and say, precious, precious. And it will never ever see the light of day again until this guy either dies or it's unsold. If this guy happens to die, his estate will try and sell it and it will surface. I had a run-in many years back with a similar type collector who managed to thieve 4 locomotives from my N-scale club layout that we were displaying with another club. 4 years later, I get a phone call from one of the members of that club saying, I think I might have found your locomotives. Can you describe how they were built? So 2 of the locomotives were mine, 2 of the locomotives were another one of our members. So I rang him up and said, how did you build that? So he gave me chapter and verse. I was able to go back to the guy who thought he'd seen it. The following day, he kind of went and had a look at the layout again, said, they look interesting. Any chance of having a look at them? So the guy handed them off to my mate. He looked at it, verified that they weren't your usual version of the locomotives, and they were the 4 missing locomotives. Sometime after the exhibition, it was quietly suggested to this guy that he might like to hand those locomotives back because they were stolen property and could be proven as such. He said, "Oh no, they're all my own work. I did all the paint work. I did all the modification time." And he insisted that they were his. What I found out later, there was a subsequent visit by my mate who had a friendly policeman with him. The friendly policeman kind of suggested that he might like to hand those 4 locomotives over now, or he would be charged with receiving stolen property. The 4 locomotives got very, very quietly handed over, and we got our locomotives back. So I know the quiet approach can work. We just need to find our collector, mate in inverted commas, who's got this stuff buried, if it's buried. Now, I don't know which way this has gone, but it's a 50-50 bet. It's either landfill or some very private collector's got hold of it. That collector need not necessarily be in Australia because this stuff is that unique. So what I'd like to do, if Steve's okay, I'll show you a quick video of the actual mine that we're modelling. Then I'll show you another quick video of our layout on display last May with this rolling stock on it. Then I'll go through a post on another forum where I'll step you through each of the bits that have gone missing, so you've got some idea of what's gone missing. That's the plan. You okay with that, Steve and Jim?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's see whether I can get this share business to work. Okay, screen now. Where the places are we? Hang on, I need to do this and this. Share. Okay, so where's my... Hang on.
John, I hate to say this, but
Click on your browser down there. Click on, yeah, there you go. Now you're on your browser.
Okay, right. This is the video of the actual colliery. That locomotive was built in 1865. It's the oldest operating locomotive in New South Wales when this video was shot, probably in 1950. This is standard gauge. I'll skip it forward to the incline. This is the incline. One track's always heavy with loads going down. The other track is light with loads coming up. This is the train. Hang on, back it up. This is one of the trains that ran from the mine. This is Burra. It was built in 1924. It's 100 years old this year. The celebrations are in November. That's about 3/4 of a tonne of coal in each skip to a tonne of coal. This is the empty train going back to the mine. That's what we're trying to replicate. I'll stop this one here and I'll show you the other clip, hopefully. Okay. Can you see what's been stolen? I'll drop the other video if we're under time pressure.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. This is the first Corrimal Crouse. It was built in 1891 in Tasmania. It was retired. Corrimal bought it in about 1906. It ran till just prior to World War II. Later on, it went over on its side. That is a model that was built as a brass fold-up etch kit by Bruce Green out of South Africa. The kits are as rare as hen's teeth. We had one of those locomotives stolen. It's got operating Stephenson valve gear on the outside in this area here. Can you see where the cursor is?
Yes.
Okay, all that eccentric gear works. This is Borough 1924 as built. It was the only loco on site with a diamond stack. Photos, if you see a photo of Borough with a diamond stack, it's between 1924 when it arrived on site and 1945 when it was reboiled. That's built on a Barkman Percy, and one of our 3D coal skips is behind it with 6 straight spoke wheels. Those wheels were our own custom design that were fabricated in the UK. Okay, there's the other Borough, the reboiled Borough. It had Borough nameplates on it when it got hoisted. This locomotive here, the black one, is a Fleischmann Magic Trains Staines. This is more or less standard out of the box, but painted industrial grime. And we lost one of them. This is it on the way back to the mine, towing empty skips on the layout. This is what we call Little Bat. It's an ON3 Grant Line unpowered locomotive kit. We've powered these locomotives with different chassis underneath so that they are operational. This skip is towing a range of different skips. Some of our skips were cast resin body like this one. Some of our skips, like the one immediately behind the locomotive, are a later design that's fully 3D printed bodies. Okay, next one. These are some of the cast resin bodies awaiting tipping at the mine. We run live coal loads down to 25% grade, tip them out automatically at the bottom, and then send the empties back uphill. This is one of the skips being magnetically hauled uphill. Under the skip is a strong magnet. Under the track is a strong magnet on a chain. You drag the chain along under the track. The magnet on the skip wants to follow it. The chain's dead straight. The wheels roll around and the skip looks like it's being hauled on the incline. It's all black magic. This is the grey one, is one of our 3D printed skips in the raw before it gets its paint job. The one heading uphill is one of our resin cast bodies. Both of those are on straight wheel skips. Okay, we lost these 2 trains as well. These are dedicated with little bats to the underground men and materials portal. Basically, this stretcher track lives under a hood and the train shuttles out to the mouth of the portal, sits out exposed to the public where the public can see it for about 2.5 minutes, then it kind of scurries away and 30 seconds later the other train comes out. So what we're looking at here is 3D printed chorus wagons supplied out of the UK, but modified by me to fit the seats. These had miners fitted to them when they got hoisted. That's another one of our 3D printed skips. Our supply train is 2 skip wagons and an oil drum wagon. They're based on the same chassis as what's under the coal skip. We lost that train as well. This is the other later Borough and what I call Big Bat, which is my bogie electric, large battery electric locomotive. It's built on a Barkman 45-ton mech. If you lift the battery boxes, the green cast metal noses for the 45-ton GE are hidden under the battery boxes. It's got a centralised cab with a central driver, and that's Big Bat. And that's a quick summary of what we've lost.
Hey, John,
Yep.
have you thought about sending a letter to the place that you stayed where it was stolen and see if they would?
They're all across it. The
Okay.
outfit where we stayed are across it. The 2 local police forces are across it.
Yeah.
The local hobby shop is looking for it. All the pawnbroking stalls in Albury and adjacent regions are looking for this stuff to turn up. So far it hasn't, which kind of leads me to believe it may have gone either into landfill or a private collector may be in the process of squirreling it away, never to be seen again.
Wow.
That's where we're at. At present, we're rebuilding. I'm going to drop out of screen share. So any questions?
Wow. Well, they all did.
John, I think we all feel sorry for you and hope you get it back.
Okay, I'll hold this up. Camera. Where are you? This is one of our 3D printed chassis. Notice that they're inside bearings.
Yeah.
There are very, very few inside bearing wagon chassis available. This is one of our 3D printed raw skip bodies. We've got the iron or steel strapping 3D printed on it. On the inside, it's relatively plain. Yeah, they're very, very durable. It's ready to get glued to. I'm in the process of working out how many couplings and wheels I need. The couplings are a very, very unique coupling from the UK. They're supplied by an outfit called DG. They're DG couplings supplied by Wizard Models out of the UK. So again, they're a prong and loop type deal. In the UK, they're used for delayed action with a metal loop. Because of the strong magnets we're using under the track, we're using brass wire formed up as the loop. So they're not a standard DG coupling. We've modified them to suit our designs. Okay.
Well, listen, I hope you can come back next week, John, and give us an update. Maybe you'll get lucky, and by next week you'll have found it all.
I hope so. I could do with a good Easter present.
Well, thank you so much for being here this evening. We really do appreciate it. Steve, you got anything?
No, I'm finished. I'm done.
Okay, well, we'll see you next week too. Thank you so very much, both of you. We really do appreciate it. And best of luck, John, on getting all of that great equipment back again.
Okay, next week, if Steve's agreeable, I'll run the little 3-minute clip about how we've...
that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, out and gone and back to lurk mode.
There you go. We'll look forward to it, John. Well, from that point, let's close our show for this evening. Sorry it's a little late, but I think it was worth it. And we'd like to close with our caboose. Pat? that's our show for this evening. Hope you enjoyed it. Most importantly, hope you learned something. Until next Wednesday, best of modeling to you.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.